Right guys, and what you're looking at here is my Confederate collection that I've done just recently for sharp practice. Being an absolute lover of first go figures, as you all know from my history, I decided to take a look in my bins and in my drawers and things and see what I had of first goes, having done many a unit in the past and many a collection for people. I thought I must do a sharp practice, especially after what happened recently with my friend. So I took a quick look in and I managed to dig out quite a few lovely figures. If I close in on the units a bit, at the back I'm sure you'll see we've got four groups of 2 units of Confederates. Now they were all made up from the original figures I used to have. A lot of them had already been block painted, I'd had done quite some time ago. As we come down to the front, I've got dismounted cavalry there, more dismounted cavalry over here, and a set of Texas sharpshooters down at the front. Now what you need to know about this collection is all of these figures I didn't purchase. I had all around, made them up into what I wanted them to be and painted them up. Now what I tend to do with those is I always spray the figures first for Confederates in a mix of a dark grey, a light grey and a butternut. Then I bring the figures in, do the dry brushing on those to lift them, and then I go on and add in different greys to those butternuts and different butternuts and browns onto the greys, put some washes on. I'm a big believer in painting quite a few figures at a time, and with these figures an awful lot of them needed touching up first because a lot of them had been block painted quite a while ago. There are some that I don't even know if still in the first coat ranges, and 1 or 2 of the Confederates actually come from the slouched hats Mexican American war range, which again are absolutely perfect for Confederates, so it's not a problem at all. Well, I hope you enjoy and I'll show you the Union. And here we have my Union troops, again come out of the bins that I had right at the back. If we take a closer look, we look at the back there up at the top, we'll see that we have marching Union troops. Must have had them about 30 years, and we've got some right shoulder shift mixed in. I had some Zouaves that I'd actually used a while ago for the Franco-Prussian War, but then I used the variant Kepi heads and I got a lovely unit of Zouaves. I went for a different format with these. I didn't have so many skirmish units and I had more base groups. If we move across, you see the big man there on his horse. We have got the Iron Brigade with some nice right shoulder shift slouch hat figures mixed in as well to give them a variant. So we come down the front, Badans for a unit of skirmishers, and finishing off with the cavalry there, dismounted. So 2 nice forces, I think, there for sharp practice. Again, all first go figures, showing the great versatility of the range and how they still stand up in the marketplace today. Then again, I'm biased because I was part of all of this at the beginning with good old brilliant Rob Baker. Here we have the first of my units for the Union Army. We have 2 groups of the Iron Brigade, beautiful figures from First Corps. What I've also done is added in quite a few of their right shoulder shift figures as well, and as you'll see, these guys are not necessarily wearing the same hardy hat as the original Iron Brigade troops. First Corps do make a lot of variants in this, and I'm quite down to the campaign effect, so you'll see that there's a few in the back ranks with the right shoulder shift that are wearing those hats. The officer is the Oliver Otis Howard officer, the one-armed officer, the big man on his horse. The standing officer is actually the Louis Armistead officer, who comes with separate arms, and I don't know if you'll know, but in the collection, as obviously Louis Armistead, he usually has his hat on the end of his sword, but I've given him variant arms, so now he's advancing, telling his men to push forward. And the sergeant is from the skirmishers sets. There you go, that's the Iron Brigade 2 groups. The next 2 groups are made up from the regular Union troops. You'll see the rear ranks of the 2 groups are made up from the marching figures in kepi. The front ranks are made up from troopers that come in the command sets and the advancing charging sets. What I've done as well is I've added a couple of slouch hats into these 2 groups because I am a believer that although it was predominantly the kepi that the Union forces wore, troops did on campaign pick up the odd slouch hats to use. The officer and sergeant in this set I really love. The officer himself is one that when Rob Baker designed these figures way back, he did the officer as Gould Shaw from the film Glory from the 54th Massachusetts, and the sergeant, as you'll notice if you look closely, is a copy of Sergeant Mulcahy, who was brought in to train the 54th Massachusetts. I've had these figures an awful long time, as I said, where they've originally come from, and it was really nice to be able to use these in this way. This next set of Union troops has one group of Zouaves. For this group of Zouaves, I've decided not to use the standard Zouaves as everybody usually uses. First Corps do, when they do their advancing charging Zouaves, they do give you the option of kepis, fez or turban, and this time I went for the kepi, which was in common use in the Union Army, and I went for a non-sort of standard unit. This is the 33rd New Jersey Zouaves. The sergeant is actually the early Zouave officer from the packs, and what I've done was I cut out the sword in his high hand and put a rifle in to make him into the sergeant, and then the officer I took from the normal officer sets in the frock coat. As Zouave officers, as the war progressed, tended to just wear a basic uniform with a frock coat, so I went for this officer. I think he fits really well, and these are the 33rd New Jersey Zouaves for the Union Army. Here you'll see the first of the skirmish units for this collection. These are my Union Badan sharpshooters, 6 of them skirmishing. I've done a sergeant and an officer so that will depict what I want to use. In the First Corps collection there are these figures that are specifically done as Badans. What I've also put in, as you can see, is there's a casualty figure. He is Badan's casualty, and I've just shown how I'm doing those for the collection. The casualty markers of the little hole that I've put in for the dice to go in. But I've done these Badans in the standard Badan uniform. I know there was variations as the war went on, but I do like the idea of the green. Hey guys, right, the last of my skirmish units here for my Union collection so far. We have the dismounted Union cavalry. Make a great skirmish line here. We've got one of the standard officers in it, but you can see there's also a sergeant carrying the standard for the cavalry. What I've also laid down there, you'll see, is some of what the company calls battlefield debris. You'll see there's a hat with a bedroll, a backpack. They do quite a range of things like that to enhance your battlefields. And also, once again, I've used the casualty figure. I've added in the sword that does come in some of the cavalry packs, and you'll see that 1 or 2 of the figures have actually still got the swords fastened to them. For the cavalry figure, just to denote him as well as painting him as a cavalryman. These are the standard dismounted cavalry for the Union. Here are the first of my Confederates. We've got the big man, or the mounted officer there. I've got 1 officer out the front. The troops themselves are made up from the right shoulder shift units that you can buy from First Corps and from the advancing charging troops, with a mix of kepi and slouch. A variant of colours I've done here in the greys, and then shirts. And as you can also see with this group, you'll see that there's a standing wounded guy that I'm using for the shock come casualty marker for games and things in the future. I think these guys are great for that, and I've basically just left a hole for the dice to go in, micro dice. I think it works really well. Flags are from GMB flags. I think it's turned out in a real good unit. Here's the second of my 2 group Confederate units. You'll see I've used the same format for figures again for these, a lot of variant in the colour versions of the Confederates. The officer is another variant of Gould Shaw, this time as a Confederate because he's wearing a shell jacket. The sergeant has come from the skirmish set, and you'll see again I've got the casualty marker, another of the lovely variant casualties that First Corps deliver. There's some lovely casualties and wounded figures in the set. The Sabot bases as well, as I haven't mentioned yet, I got them from Sabotage 3D that you can get if you go online, and they're lovely bases, and they're quite cheap as well in resin, but very nice. I hope you enjoy this second unit. Okay guys, there's the first of my Confederate skirmish units. You'll see what I've decided to have is some dismounted Confederate cavalry. This is the first of two lots of those. Now these guys are just basically made up of the Kepid cavalry troopers, but painted as standard Confederate cavalry from the early part of the war, with the Confederate cavalry dismounted command pack officer. And then obviously just one of the casualty figures markers down for them. I've done it this way. I might mix up both sets, but I thought if I show you the standard Union cavalry can be painted as Confederate for the early part of the war, and they fit absolutely perfectly. In the second set of dismounted Confederate cavalry, you'll see the variants of these with the slouch hats and slightly different equipment on some of them. You've got the bandaged head chaps. Obviously, like I said, I'm going to mix these guys up when I use the two units. Bit of battlefield debris there, and you've actually got the downed horse, which is something that First Corps also do, and I thought I'd throw this in because, as you can see from this presentation, that there are a lot of different things that this range has to offer, and the figures really still do stand up well. Here we have the last so far of the skirmish units for the Confederates that I've done so far. Now what I've done here is I've taken the Badan figures from the standard Badan troops, as you remember from earlier, but this time I've used them as a skirmish line for the Confederate force, painting them as Texas Rifles, or 4th Texas Infantry had these rifles in them, and they made out as great skirmishers, and they're wearing the right colours and the right coats for this unit. So again, the versatility that's available, especially with Civil War uniforms, is great. And here the last thing I thought I'd show is some of the other versatile things that First Corps have, and I thought I'd use these perfectly for my scenarios. In the picture what you see is we've got a 4-horse team for the artillery, here done as Confederate artillery. We've got the caisson, which comes as standard as it, at the back there with the 3 wheels, and obviously the limber itself that comes with the 4 horses. They both can be bought independently if you need to. What you'll also see is a bit of battlefield debris laid down there as well. What we also have is the sniper that comes with different head variants. This one's done as a Confederate. You'll see what was classed as a camp slave, carrying all the gear for everybody, and one of the pioneers carrying a box. I just thought I'd put these in because First Corps does have all these different things in sets. Pioneers come in a set of 6, I believe. Say the sniper has variant heads, so you can use them for either side. The camp slave, a lovely piece for doing in your vignettes and things. And obviously, as you can see, the limber, the caisson, teams of 6 you can go up to, with riders and other variant figures to be used, but I've just used these for my scenario.